So we do ask that you keep yourself muted until you want to ask a question or make a comment. Please also, we like to keep this as conversational as possible. I know virtual meetings get a little tricky. So if you have questions about a slide, just stop us, unmute, raise your hand, whatever you need to do to let us know that you have a question or a comment, and we will let you speak. So while these seem a little formal and like a little icky because they are virtually, we do try to keep them as personable as possible. All right, so we'll go ahead and do introductions, and we'll start by introducing the KHC team. I am Kelly Reynolds with Kentucky Housing Corporation. I'm the Assistant Director of Housing Contract Administration over single-family programs. So I have our single-family programs, which are Home and Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Rural Housing Trust Fund, and then we have the Weatherization program on my other side. So I'm going to turn it over to Johnny Bush and let him introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Johnny Bush, Weatherization Assistant Program Technical Administrator. Work with weatherization ready a lot, vehicle request, a lot of different things. But yeah, it's good to meet you all or talk to you, see you, the ones that are on camera. So.
All right, Ellery.
Hi, y'all. I'm Ellery Gessler. I'm the Weatherization Workforce Development Administrator here at KHC.
Patty.
Hi, everybody. Patty Sawala. I'm your Bill Project Monitor and Interim Project Specialist.
Troy.
Hello, Troy Gosser. Training, work for the Retraining Center and also a monitor. So good to meet you all. Some of you I'm sure I've met. I've been here about 10 years. So.
All right, Jason Renaud.
Good morning, everybody. As Kelly said, it's Jason Renaud, trainer at the Training Center and technical monitor for weatherization.
Dwayne.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dwayne Cade. I'm a trainer at the Center and also a weatherization state technical monitor.
Right, and Johnny Luckenbill.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Johnny Luckenbill. I am the lead technical monitor for Kentucky Housing.
Perfect. And rounding out our team today is Chase.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chase Garrett, and I am the program coordinator at the Retraining Center.
Perfect. All right, so now you know who all is attending from KHC. So when we get to kind of questions, you've got all of the resources here today. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the average cost per unit. Many of you know that this is a popular topic of conversation, and this is how we always start our technical and our TA meetings for the quarter, is just talking about weatherization averages. This is the formula for it's how to calculate your weatherization average. You take your materials and your labor, plus any vehicles and equipment that you've purchased, plus your program support, and you divide it by your number of completions, and that gets your current per unit average. So we look at these by subgrantee, but we also look at these as a state as a whole, because we do have the average cost per unit that's written into legislation is for each. So the next slide is going to tell you where we are right now. So these are driven by the Department of Energy. In our LIHEAP state plan, we did remove the average cost per unit in that state plan to give us a little bit more flexibility in how we spend those dollars. So that state average is written in legislation for the Weatherization Assistance Program under the U.S. Department of Energy. So under our Department of Energy formula dollars, our target for FY26 is $8,547. So we wanted to point out, we ended FY25 or our program year 25 with $8,355.38 with 355 total completions. Keep in mind, we had a kind of an extra quarter because DOE didn't get our state plan approved by July 1. So we asked for a 90-day no-cost extension, which they granted. So we really didn't end that grant until September 30th. So we had an extra quarter to reach those goals. For quarter two, which really was the first quarter of our new DOE grant, but it was our quarter two of our fiscal year 26, we had an average cost per unit of $40,655.27 with 10 completions. So a really bad quarter. You guys can see that. No questions asked. Right now, we are still getting invoices in for our quarter three. We still have some subgrantees who have not met the deadline of the due date of yesterday. So just keep that in mind. If you're one of those subgrantees, you need to get those in to us because we do have to do quarterly reporting next week to DOE. But for quarter three, right now, as it stands today, our average cost per unit is $9,533.01 with 83 total completions. Keep in mind, we're still trying to finalize a few invoices, so that could change. It could go up or it could go down. I have a feeling it might tick up a little bit, but $9,533 is certainly tons better than almost $41,000 at the end of quarter two. And we are really close to our target number of $8,547. So we have right now, as of today, about $1,000 that we have to shave off. So we are going to talk about the strategies that you need to be using. Some of you have adopted these strategies. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And some of those strategies we're helping you along with as we get those invoices in. I know Patty and Johnny have had some conversations about moving some program support dollars around to help meet that target. For our DOE IIJA or bill project, again, our average is a target over 5 years. Really, it's probably going to be 7 years because they've extended that grant for 2 years. But right now, we don't even know what that's going to be because we don't know what the average for next year is going to look like. So we have just kind of given you a snapshot of what it has been over the past 4 years. So you can kind of see. For quarter one, we were at 12,657 with 478 total completions. Quarter two, we have 512 total completions with 12,654. So we dropped just a tad. And then for quarter three, we have fallen to 530 total completions. We went up a tick, so that's good, with a $12,531 average cost per unit. So we came down about $100, which is good. Multifamily is going to help us with that. We did submit a multifamily audit, I think a week or two ago, to DOE for their approval. That would be 220 units if we get an approval on that audit. So just keep in mind, that's where we're are right now. So state averages. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the average cost per unit? How it's calculated, where we are?
No, all I did was.
Anyone?
Yeah. Thank you.
And keep in mind, if you're not talking, to please mute yourself. Okay. All right, Johnny, let's go to the next slide. So average cost per unit, we have to meet that average cost per unit of $8,547 by June 30th, 2026. I mean, there's really no flexibility in that. You have to meet it. And if you as a subgrantee are not meeting it, then that will be a financial repayment to KHC because we will have a financial repayment to DOE. So we need really 302 completions to meet that 8,547 average cost per unit. As you can see, we've brought it down a lot without 302 completions. 302 is what's written in the state plan, so that is the benchmark that we are trying to achieve. Statewide, again, we had 83 completions as of March 31st. So we really need 219 units by the end of the year to reach the 302 goal, and really to get that average cost per unit down to $8,547. Right, next slide. I'm going to let Johnny Bush review this one. He's prepared this, but this is per agency where you are. Right, Johnny?
Thank you. Like Kelly said, this is just a look at program operations expenditure, which again covers program support, materials and labor, and any vehicle expenses or equipment. So we got the program operations expenditure, number of completions, and then average cost per unit per agency. And then also showing how much was awarded in program operations, the required number of DOE units per the state plan, how many units are remaining, how much program operations is remaining based on how much is spent versus what was awarded. And then for completing the units that are, that need to be completed, this would be the average cost per unit to get to the 8547. Like, this is how much you could spend. Some agencies are under, some are over. I think we got a chat.
I can answer it.
Okay.
Yeah. When you're done, are you finished with that slide?
Yeah, pretty much. I was just going to say, we've nearly every agency's got a completion now, so we can actually see how that's trending either up or down. And it's trending down for almost everybody. So it's so far good, but we need to keep in mind that we still got more to go.
All right. So the question in the chat is a financial repayment after year 1 or after year 3 of the DOE cycle. That's a great question and clarification. My understanding is that it would be after it's each year. So that average cost per unit is an average for each year. So the financial repayment would be each year, not we do not have a 3-year grant cycle to meet that average cost per unit. DOE gave us a waiver on that during COVID and allowed us to culminate all 5 years of the grant into one average cost per unit, but that is not an option now. Great question. All right, so ACPU tips. So how can we work to get that average cost per unit done? Bottom line, do more jobs. We kind of like highlighted it, italicized it, underlined it. That's the #1 goal. Is the more jobs you do, the better your average cost per unit will look like. So that really is the key to making this work. It's just more jobs. We have to chug the jobs. So how are you going to do that? How do you go about getting more jobs? Definitely use Weatherization Ready on your deferrals. If you are seeing deferrals and you're not using Weatherization Ready, really, I'm going to just say shame on you. You need to be using your Weatherization Ready dollars. We have plenty. Those were appropriated by Congress, and they were appropriated by Congress for this very instance of turning those deferrals into job completions, and we really want to do that. If you are having trouble, just an FYI, if you're having trouble with a roofing contractor, because some of you are saying, well, that they really need new roofs and we don't have a roofing contractor, I actually contact me because I have somebody who will do roofs statewide. So I've taken care of that situation for you. So please, please, please go after Weatherization Ready. We're going to have some stuff later to talk about Weatherization Ready, but that is the key. And Johnny Bush is your Weatherization Ready guru on those requests and how to do those. He also is going to talk about that more later. All right, next bullet. Emphasize, do more jobs. Okay, braiding your LIHEAP and DOE. You guys are great at this. You do so well at this and such a great job that when those LIHEAP funds are slow to come to us, because we all know how that money flows, you guys really do struggle because you're so good at braiding the dollars. That is actually a kudos to you. It's a pro and a con probably. You're so good at it that you make those dollars work for you and work for the clients, and that's a good thing. The con is when we are low on LIHEAP dollars, it really does stalemate us on job production, which is what we saw in that quarter 2. Of why we only had 10 job completions is because I know you guys just didn't have LIHEAP dollars. It's a vicious cycle that you run. I get it. One low cost measure paid for DOE. So here's a strategy when you're braiding those dollars. Use your LIHEAP dollars for pretty much everything on a job, except take a low cost measure and pay for it with DOE. Right now you have plenty of LIHEAP money. We ended up with 8 million for the year, but you got 6 million of that like in February. And so we want to see those dollars spent. The cabinet wants to see those dollars spent. So use a lot of those dollars on your weatherization measures. Don't spend them in health and safety so much. Spend them in those regular weatherization measures. Do those measures and throw in something like LED bulbs and pay for that with your DOE money, or fixtures. Like do something that's really kind of a low cost regular weatherization measure. That's one strategy. The second strategy is let LIHEAP absorb most of your program support. This has been key this quarter. I know Johnny and Patty have really focused on that. I think if you are coming in with a lot of program support on your DOE dollars, they're telling you to go back and recalculate that and push those to LIHEAP. That really is good. That is probably one of the things that has lowered that average quite as much as we've seen, is you're taking these strategies and really implementing them. Continue to implement those as you do more jobs. If you don't have direct costs associated with the job, don't bill DOE program support. So if you haven't done any weatherization jobs, we shouldn't be seeing a lot of program support dollars, because what are you supporting? Because I'm not seeing job production. So we need to be seeing job production if you're going to use those program support dollars. Like I know we are getting pretty icky and tight on this, but this is what we have to do. We have to do this to keep those averages balanced. All right. Any questions about the strategies? All right. Equipment purchases. This is really just a reminder. We talked about this in the last quarterly meeting, but some of this has changed a little bit. And so I want to be sure that you're not missing the boat on this when you get monitored with your financial admin monitor. So if you're doing equipment purchases, the DOE formula limit is $10,000. If you're purchasing equipment that the cost is less than $10,000, you can just purchase the equipment. If it's over $10,000 and it's equipment, you need to contact KHC to get our approval. If it's a vehicle, there is a whole lot more, and I'm just going to tell you, word of warning, every time we submit a vehicle purchase request or disposal request to DOE, they come up with something else we have to do that we didn't know. So if we come back to you asking for another piece of paper, I apologize. Because DOE has requested it from us. So that's DOE formula. However, IIJA bill dollars, even though funded through DOE, they were funded under a different year. And they were funded under a year that the 2 CFR 200 stated the purchase limit was $5,000. So if you're purchasing equipment with your IIJA bill dollars, that's over $5,000, you have to get our permission for that. So I just wanted to clarify that. Flip side, let's swing over to LIHEAP, which is a whole lot harder to do equipment purchases. If you are requesting equipment purchases out of your LIHEAP dollars that are over $500, not only do you have to, so you have to request permission from KHC. We in turn have to go request permission from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and it has to be tagged with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services asset tag. And if you ever want to dispose of that equipment, we have to contact the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and they're going to come out to the location and take that equipment from you. So just understand that making a equipment purchase with LIHEAP money over $500 is a lot more tedious than just going out and buying the equipment. So just wanted to remind anybody. Is there example list of what qualifies as equipment? Example, new truck tires. I think truck tires are just basic maintenance for the truck, so I don't think that's equipment. Equipment would be blower doors. Blower doors tend to come in at higher than those thresholds. Basic tools you could acquire under LIHEAP, like hammers, nail guns, caulking, caulking tools. Those could be purchased under LIHEAP. But if it is, guys, you might have to help me out with a tool that might be over $500. I don't know if it's a manometer.
Manometer or personal CO detector.
Yeah,
could
an
get up in
infrared
there.
camera, any of those would qualify as equipment. How about a $600 DeWalt kit? Probably that would qualify as equipment under the LIHEAP purchase, so buy it under formula or bill.
And with LIHEAP, don't they also have a software clause in theirs?
Not for software, that's just
Not
us.
software. Okay. I was thinking it was them.
Yeah, no, that's just us. Yeah, but computers, if you buy a computer with LIHEAP dollars and you paid for it all with LIHEAP dollars, then it is cabinet property. So FYI. Can we split $300 DOE and $300 LIHEAP? Yeah, so I was just thinking about that, Kent. So great thought. Yeah, they don't say anything about splitting the dollars in the contract and in the guidance. So I think if you keep it under $500, we're all good. No problem with the confusion on this topic. I too have been very confused, and quite honestly, I too have argued this with the cabinet that this number is ridiculous, and I get $500 is ridiculous. I get that too. I've asked our leadership to try to help us. They've gone to the finance cabinet to try to get some help as well. So we're working on it, but I can't promise anything. This is written in state statute, actually, but the Cabinet for Health and Family Services is the only one who's following said state statute. This is because of a recent audit that the cabinet had with the state auditor's office, where they got dinged because they weren't following this state statute. So that's the background on why we're honing in on it. Any other questions? All right. Okay, so our LIHEAP SIR, again, this is a reminder slide. We put this policy into place in November, but we raised the SIR on LIHEAP to 1.0. We are getting that in the LIHEAP state plan for this year. So just FYI, we are now following the DOE rules on the SIR. This is just to help save some of our LIHEAP dollars to give you more flexibility in braiding. And I know you're going to see measures that you can't do that you've been able to do in the past. I understand that, but we do really, really need to save those dollars for those measures that are seemingly a little bit higher on the SIR. So we're going to go with the DOE rule on that. And we probably have mostly transitioned most of those energy audits that were done prior to November 7th. But if you still have, if you're an agency or subgrantee that still has an energy audit that is that preceded that November 7th date, you could still use that 0.6 SIR. All right, next slide. Weatherization ready requests. Johnny Bush, this one's you.
It is. Sorry, this is just more of a general reminder for weatherization ready work. Ensure that the work is completed prior to starting weatherization, because that's actually what's in our state plan, what's in our program manual, and something if we, if DOE comes in and monitors us, which they will be looking at that. At some point they'll monitor us. I don't know when. But and completed WX ready work is defined as repairs completed and is primer paint ready. Some examples would be have all pest extermination treatments completed before starting weatherization measures, or if replacing drywall due to mold and moisture, ensure the drywall is primer/paint ready. The pest extermination one is this one that I've seen a few different times, where they do one treatment, but you set it up for doing 6 treatments altogether. And after the first treatment, you go ahead and start doing the work. And then after you get completed, there's more treatments afterwards. After you get the regular weatherization work completed, there's more treatments afterwards. And it gets a little bit into an area that we're paying for WX weatherization ready work after a job is completed and finalized. So that's kind of an area I don't think we need to be in myself, but we're trying to figure that one out and trying to come up with some good stuff. But just in general, make sure WX ready work is completed prior to starting weatherization. And if you run into an issue and need to start weatherization work before completing the weatherization ready, then get approval from KHC before proceeding. Reach out to us. We'll try our best to work with you on these things. We want to see these projects get finished. We want, to get completions. That's, kind of where we're at right now, is trying to get completions, and using weatherization ready for those is kind of key in a lot of places. So that's more or less what this slide is for. And yeah, hopefully that helps out a little bit, and kind of just general reminders, not trying to say anything to anybody, just make sure we're following the rules as we can. And so we'll go on to the next slide.
Okay, there is something in the chat on weatherization readies and the time limit of 120 days. So that we put into the state plan probably 3 years ago. It's not a new change. We were required by DOE to define a time limit. So we did 120 days. So what that means is from the start of your weatherization ready work, you need to have weatherization completion within 120 days. Stuff happens, we get it, DOE gets it. And so I'll give you some examples of what we've encountered. We have encountered some projects that we just couldn't get completed to weatherization. And what happened is, a homeowner passes away, or a homeowner ends up in the hospital. And so you just can't meet that timeline. That happens. It does. We have a house burned down. I think that was one. So this does happen from time to time. You just need to communicate with us so we can kind of give DOE a heads up as well. So the rule is, yes, it should be 120 days, but things do happen that will keep us from meeting that deadline. And it's, yeah. language
Yeah.
in the WXWR form? I mean, I guess we can. It's in the policy manual.
Yeah, I mean, and I can look at that just to see where we can fit something like that. With this year being a little wonky for us is where this comes from. Normally, we would be able to roll over to the next funding year, and it's kind of tricky for us because June 30th, as of right now, is our kind of hard soft stop. I don't know how to even phrase it. It's kind of a weird time.
More on that.
So, yeah, and so yeah, I'm not trying to give spoilers here, but that's the reason why that's came up recently. Normally, it wouldn't truly be a problem because y'all get the weatherization ready work done, go and do your weatherization work. It's not really been a problem. Like just going back and looking through completions on WX, WR, and then getting the projects completed. I've only seen a few over the last 2 or 3 years that didn't meet that 120-day timeline, and they were extenuating circumstances, and they'd reached out, and so it's generally not a problem. Just this year it's going to be, and that's the reason why it's come up recently. And yeah, I'll look at the form to see what we can add, and I try to put some extra language in my emails when I send the approval, just trying to remind people about the 10%. If your cost exceeds 10%, you need to put in another request, or if your scope of work changes, you need to put in another request. I put stuff like that in my email when I send out. Not sure if it's been read, but I try to remind, and at the very least I can do that right now, Kent, is the 120-day timeline and stuff. And then we'll see if we can get the form updated again. So. All right.
Yep. All right, perfect. Keep the questions coming. I love questions. All right. We are going to flip this over now to the recenter team. If you haven't been to the recenter, that's what our testing and training labs look like. But I'll flip that over. Dwayne, I think you are up.
Good looking bunch of people there in that picture. Just a little updates on what's going on at the training center and with the tech team. We are currently working on our July through December schedule. We don't have that completed yet, but as soon as we do, we will present that to y'all for what classes we got coming up for the next 6 months. Our D&E course, it has changed to the first week in person. We did that a few weeks ago, and it was very successful. Everybody liked it a whole lot more than the virtual first week, and we got to do some try some new things and get some feedback from the first class that was there, and it was all positive. So we're really glad we made that transition away from virtual to in person for that first week. Some news from BPI. The RIT and crew leader certifications are going to be retired. As of September, they will no longer offer those tests. So that's not even going to be a BPI certification anymore, which is actually kind of a good thing for our state because we can kind of get away from the BPI specifications for that training and make it more state specific. So we're going to be working on that, and there'll be more to come about that later once we get the classes worked out and build some curriculum for that. Any questions over any of that? Okay. Moving on then. Request to exceeds. 910s are being submitted after the work is performed. That form is designed to be submitted prior to work starting. Failure to seek that approval prior to the work beginning could result in that 910 being denied. If new 910s will be requested if your costs are 10% variance or scope of work has changed. This is all pretty much stuff that's been covered before, but it's worth covering again. The PN 01 2026 increase the exceed limit for LIHEAP total regular weatherization. Most of y'all already know about that. It increased it to 17,000, and that waiver is going to continue until that magical date of June 30th, like everything else. Any questions over any of that? Okie doke.
All right. Thanks, Dwayne. I'll take it over from here. So multifamily, we issued a public notice about low-rise priority lists. So we want to really just kind of cover multifamily. And the first thing we want to do is cover the criteria to do multifamily. For 5 units or more, the criteria is going to be, in order to be approved to do multifamily or to try a multifamily project, we are going to require you to have either an in-house energy auditor or a QCI. Or if you're using a contractor for those services, they have to have multifamily experience. And I'm not talking about multifamily experience 10 years ago or 15 years ago during ARA, because multifamily has changed hugely since then. It has to be current multifamily experience. You also have to be scoring low risk or low medium risk on the KHC risk assessments. If you do not know what your score is or you haven't ever asked, please reach out to Patty. She does those risk assessments, so she'll be in charge of that, telling you what that is. You also have to display a history of submitting invoices every 60 days for the past 3 years. This isn't a lot to ask, quite honestly. We would want you to submit those every month. We've talked about that, to submit monthly invoices. It keeps you and us out of having to do a lot of extra work. Submitting them quarterly creates a lot of unnecessary work for you. Your contracts also state that you will submit an invoice to us every 60 days. So we're just asking you to meet your contract terms. You should not exceed 3 regular weatherization findings and have no health and safety findings on the most recent technical monitoring. Now, why no health and safety findings? Here's the deal. You shouldn't ever have health and safety findings, quite honestly, because if you end up with a health and safety finding, that means that you left a house unsafe for the people living in it. In single family, you're affecting 4 people. If you have a health and safety violation in multifamily, you're affecting 200 people. So you're putting a lot more people in jeopardy. Not that we don't care about the 4, we do, but it impacts a lot more people if you have a health and safety finding. So that's why we're pretty steadfast on that one. You cannot exceed 1 finding on your most recent IIJA admin and financial monitoring. We want to make sure that you're using these dollars correctly before you dive into multifamily. It's a lot more complicated. You need to possess an in-house weatherization director or a dedicated staff to weatherization. Again, not a lot for us to ask, because this will take 3 people's time full time to do a big multifamily project. The public notice with these criteria is on the HCA agency partner portal, if you want to dive more deeply into those. That's the basic criteria. All right, next slide. Subgrantee responsibilities for doing multifamily. This would be doing a low-rise priority list. You would want to notify KHC, or this, it could be high risk or high rise, but these are your responsibilities. You notify KHC of the project. We would give you approval to do the project. You have to track Davis-Bacon wages in a database called LPC Tracker. We give you some training on this, and we give you some training tutorials. I'm going to tell you, DOE does not train on this anymore, nor have they provided great training materials, especially when it comes to contractors. The Shalom Towers project, multi-purpose, had to just figure it out as they went. And they had to do a lot of hand holding with their contractors. We do have a low-rise priority list now, so you can do those if you meet all the criteria, but you have to follow the process, and the process is out on the HCA agency partner portal as well as our website. And then you invoice KHC for the work. Those are your responsibilities as a subgrantee. Next slide. The multifamily priority list for the low-rise units, that has been approved by DOE. They must be wood framed, 5 or more dwelling units per building. If it's less than 5, we actually treat it as single family, even though it's still considered multifamily. No more than 3 stories above grade in height. And incidental repair measures funded with DOE WAP funds will not exceed 10% of the project's total ECM package. So if those IRMs exceed that, those IRMs need to be paid for by the landlord. All right. BABA still applies to low-rise priority lists, so you still have to follow the BABA rules. So, for example, if you have a PHA contact you to do weatherization in their units, and they would meet the low-rise priority list, oftentimes they do, they are subject to BABA. So just keep that in mind, that we still have to follow BABA rules, even with the low-rise priority list. Okay, next slide. And how this works, you will have to do a walkthrough. So you actually have to determine if you're going to do an energy audit or if you're going to use the low-rise priority list prior to doing your kind of energy audit on the building. So you have to decide what you're going to do after you get out there. You can't do like both and figure out which one is better. You have to decide that before you go, and you need to get that kind of decision-making tree in your policies. Then you would calculate your budget. So you take the number of eligible units and multiply it by the average cost per unit. This year it's $8,547. So I've got an example. Let's say you have a 200 unit project and 150 of those are income eligible. At least 66% of the units at over 5 have to be income eligible for you to do the project. To determine your budget for the project, you take the eligible units, which was 150, you multiply it by the average cost per unit, which is $8,547. So the budget for this project would be $1.2 million. You cannot exceed that. That is what you're allowed to do. You can weatherize all the units. So I can weatherize all 200 units, but I cannot exceed 1.2 million for my budget. So this is for actual measures. Notice that this does not include your program support. So you can't do, oh, well, I have $1.2 million to do all of the work, but my program support was another 300,000. It does not work that way. That 1.2 million has to also include your program support. All right. You have to install all mandatory measures on the low-rise priority list, and then you may install optional measures. So mandatory measures have to be installed and have to meet this budget. Optional measures are anything over and above. So let's say your mandatory measures and your program support comes out to be $1 million. So you think, oh, well, I've still got 200,000 that I could do something with. Let me look at this optional measures list and see what we could, like, can we install any of those? All right. So this is what the low-rise priority list looks like. It's the next slide, I think. No, it's not. It's how to use the forms. We're going to show that list in just a minute. All right. So how to use the forms. There are a lot of forms in this process. You have to have a building diagram or a footprint of what those buildings look like. You need to pull your flood permitting map. Flood permitting doesn't go away. We still have to adhere to it. We still have to adhere to the general provisions of the general permit and any locals that we have to contact. Like, we still have to do all of that for this project. You have to use Form A, which is an initial with your initial inspection. You take photographs for your file, so your file still has to have all the pictures of the units. You still have to do a health and safety inspection on each dwelling unit, which is Form H. You still have to test and document at least 50% of the combustion type, which is Form C. So if you have gas appliances, you have to test at least 50% of them. Right? And I've made this process super simple. There is a process policy guide on the website and on the HCA partner portal. All right, so that's how to use all the forms, the attachments. Okay, next slide. This is what your priority list looks like. And you actually, there is a priority list like definitions that we have included in those documents. And then there's a, like on your, one of those forms is walking you through the evaluation of these measures. Mandatory, so must put these in. Health and safety measures. So again, you're doing your health and safety walkthroughs and your inspections to identify any health and safety measures. Those are paid for with health and safety dollars. Those are outside that total budget. That total budget is for weatherization measures, regular measures. Health and safety is a little different. LED lighting. That is a mandatory measure. Air sealing, duct insulation, ceiling insulation, exterior wall insulation, and floor insulation. Does anybody see anything familiar about those mandatory measures? You can drop it in the chat or you can unmute and say, this is what I see. Anybody see anything? There's a trend. Okay, well, no one wants to answer because you're afraid you're going to get the answer wrong. These are all major measures. So I won't say all of them, but most of them are major measures. All of the major measures are encompassed in this list. So if it's a major measure on single family, it is a mandatory measure on low-rise multifamily in the priority list. Those major measures are air sealing, duct insulation, or ceiling or attic insulation, wall insulation, and floor insulation. Those are your 5 major measures. So you are seeing that now, right? All right. Optional. So what's on the optional list are heat waste reductions. So let's say you've put all of these measures in, you still have a little bit left in your budget. Now you can flip over to your optional list, which is heat waste water reduction. You can do faucet aerators, low flow shower heads, water heater, tank insulation, water heater, pipe wrap. You could do refrigerator replacements. You could do LED lighting replacements with fluorescent tubes or HVAC replacements. Now, you might get a landlord who says, I really want new P-tax, but new P-tax are not a mandatory measure, they're an optional measure. So if you had some budget left over, some dollars left over, and the landlord wants new P-tax, but you don't have enough to buy all those new P-tax, the landlord could contribute some, the owner could contribute some money to you to couple with what you've got left over to get those new P-tax, right? But we can help you walk you through that scenario. So don't think you've got to figure that out on your own. We will help you walk through this. Are there any questions about this process or the priority list? This does not mean if you have reported a KC that you do not want to do multifamily, that you have to do multifamily. This is a way to make this easier for you so you don't have to have training on how to do the treat energy modeling software, which is pretty intense. So I just wanted to let you know. Now we will be, our team is still going through training on multifamily. I think we all now, you guys help me. The technical team has all gotten their building, I'm going to get this all messed up.
Multifamily building analyst. Yes, we've all got.
Thank you. So they are all certified now. So the next step is that they are going to be receiving a training that is train the trainer. So they're going to be trained as trainers on multifamily so that we can offer multifamily training. But this would get you started. So there are a few of you that have said, hey, we would like to do some multifamily. The low-rise priority list is a pretty easy way to get you started. Is SIR not considered with the priority list? No, it is not. You do not have to get an SIR. You literally are going in and installing everything that's a mandatory measure. Yeah. There are a few instances, and you can look in the processes where maybe you can't do attic insulation or ceiling insulation because there's not enough clearance. Like there are a few instances where we might be able to, maybe you can't do a mandatory measure and we can still make that project work, but no SIR. No SIR on the optional measures. These are the optional measures. This is the list. This is all you can do. These are the only optional measures you could do. So no, they do not have to SIR. All right. Again, if you were considering, okay, well, we would like to do that low rise priority list, get with us and talk to us about the project. Right now I'm doing a waiting list. I have a waiting list of multifamily projects or owners, management companies who are interested in multifamily. So, but I think most of them are in areas where you just weren't really interested or meet those criteria to do them. The other part of this low-rise priority list, they still have to be QCI'd. So you still have to complete a QCI form. That is Form C. You have to do a Form C for the combustion safety. And then again, same QCI process, retain forms, notes, and photographs. So the QCI is still, you still have to do that, but what you're basically looking at is those mandatory measures. And again, we can help you through that if this is your first time doing it. Any questions? All right. Okay, I am going to turn this over to Ellery Gessler to talk about workforce development.
All right, y'all. So I just wanted to make y'all aware of our local workforce boards that we have in Kentucky. You may or may not be aware of them. We have 10 across the entire state. They are listed on the PowerPoint, and these are the regions in that image right there. And they were created to make a workforce development system for employers that aligns with education and industry standards and demands. And they're there to execute the goals of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is also known as WIOA. And so our areas don't always align directly with our weatherization territories, as you can see clearly on that image. So some of your counties might be in different board service areas, but I did want to bring this up because I do encourage everyone to at least look into their area's local workforce development board. They are a good resource when looking for employees for your agencies. Every board does things a little bit different. Some are with ad agencies, which are area development districts, and some are with career centers. It just kind of depends on the specific area. So I do encourage you all to reach out, or at least please let me know. I would love to reach out on behalf of your agency. So I'm there to assist in any way with that. Looking into the future, I am working on a contractor required forms document. Shout out to Jason from Audubon for giving us the idea to do this network wide. So I will be encompassing all of the required forms that KHC requires for your contractors to be in one central location for you to kind of make the process a little bit easier. And then in terms of statewide updates, I just wanted to leave you with something to think about. The governor's office is really looking into untapped talent pools across the Commonwealth, one of which being formerly incarcerated individuals. And this administration is very passionate about utilizing that talent pool. So Kentucky is going to really be pushing for reentry initiatives that help formerly incarcerated individuals get jobs out of incarceration. So I just wanted to put that on your radar. Maybe look into your HR rules, regulations, guidelines, whatever they might say about people with records. The state is actually working with Goodwill. They are expunging records for nonviolent offenders. So just wanted to put that on your radar. And that is all I have for you today. Please let me know if I can do anything for you. Reach out at any time. I'm here to help you with anything.
All right. Thank you, Ellery. Ellery and I also, we are starting a little pilot ourselves of working with BCTCS in their construction management classes and their HVAC classes to go in and speak to those classes about weatherization, what it is, what a career looks like. We share the career flyer with them about, the stepping stones to get to a QCI, how much it pays. You guys have seen that career flyer. So this is not probably an immediate need because they're still currently in school, but it is a way to at least let students know about weatherization and what that looks like when they come out and are looking for jobs or looking to start their own businesses, that they might consider contracting with us. So also, because one of their questions a lot of times is well, because we're doing this kind of with BCTCS right now, those subgrantees that serve this area are contractor based. So a lot of times their questions are about, well, how would we get jobs, that kind of thing. And so they would have to go to those contractors. So if you have contractors that could increase your capacity, if they could increase their workforce, please get with us because we would love to also help them as well. All right. Okay. I'm sorry. I have 2 people waiting in the lobby, so I think they probably got kicked out. So we want to fix that for them. All right. Any questions about that, about what we're trying to do a little bit with BCTCS? We're trying it with BCTCS, and then we'll can expand and help you guys out in your own areas. Okay. Thank you, Ellery. DOE optional budget categories. This is just a reminder to you. Now we're going to get into the crux of, and I know we've been going for an hour. We probably have another 30 minutes. I know we scheduled for 2 hours. I try to get you out before the 2 hours, but this is going to be a particularly good topic for us to talk about. It's not a good topic, but it's an interesting one. DOE optional budget categories. This is just really a reminder to you that your formula dollars, you can use intake, energy audits, inspections for your breakdown. You have to budget your energy audits. So if you're charging energy audits on formula, they have to go to your energy audit line item now. If you're budgeting inspections or QCI, it has to go to that inspections line item. If you have anybody that just does intake or their part of their job is intake, you can get a line item or get part of their salary or wages, benefits budgeted into the intake line item. You just have to let me know so I can get that into our state plan. So just an FYI on that. I know it's a reminder. I know we share it all the time, but it's different for formula than it is IIJA. My understanding is once we get to the point where we can do a revision on our IIJA bill funding, we can get those optional categories in. Next slide. So let's talk about DOE formula, because we have alluded to this. We've had some spoiler alerts in this presentation so far. Now we've gotten to what we've kind of spoiled. So Congress appropriated in the federal fiscal year 26 funding for WAP. Okay, we got a little increase. They also funded the Weatherization Ready. We do have a Kentucky congressman, a representative who sits on the Appropriations Committee for the House, Representative Rogers. He voted for the WAP funding. So if you're in his district, you might want to send a little thank you to him because he is very supportive. So that was good news. The problem is although Congress approved the budget and they appropriated the dollars, DOE has not released the guidance to us. So typically they come out with something called a WPN. It would have been WPN 26-1, and it would have been the application guidelines. Typically, we see a redline version of that like November, December, and then January. By the end of January, typically we have the final guidance. We have not received that yet. So in a normal year, our state plans are usually due the first week of May. I was banking on them being due May 3rd because that's pretty normal, May 3rd or May 5th, somewhere around in there. We don't have guidance, so nothing is due. So just to let you know, Secretary Wright did have a hearing with the Energy Committees of Congress last week, and one of the congressmen did ask him why that guidance wasn't out, essentially, or when he expected it to be out. And so he said, I will have to look into that. Now, last time he got asked about something as it pertains to WAP or weatherization, was in September when our money hadn't been released with our state plans. And within a week, that stuff was out. We had gotten approvals. We still don't have the guidance. That was last week. We still don't have the guidance from DOE. If you were at the National Home Performance Conference in HPC last week, DOE did do a presentation, and Johnny Bush and Mark were in that presentation where Derek Schrader, who was presenting on DOE's behalf, said, we're working on it. Johnny, is there anything to really elaborate on with that? Okay, we're working on it. So, and that is what he also told NASCAS in February at our February conference. So, next slide. Here's where we're at. So definitely the state planning process is delayed. So I wanted to kind of walk you through what we're doing to try to be as ready as possible. We're staying in contact with NASCAS about updates on the guidelines. So NASCAS is communicating with DOE. We're preparing as much as we can. So I've gone through and done some, red lines in the current state plan with things that we know we need to change. And we're trying to prepare as much of the budget. The budget's the trickiest part of the state plan, quite honestly. It's the most time suck of the state plan that we have. So we're doing what we can on that, but without budget numbers, which usually come out in a WPN 26-2. Or in the application guidelines, they will say, oh, well, we don't have appropriations yet, so use last year's. Well, we don't have any of that guidance, and there is an appropriation, so we do know the numbers will change, so we don't know what to do. Okay, the average cost per unit will change. It's supposed to be 3%, but in past years, it's not been 3%, so we don't even, we can't even, project that out, really. So there's not a lot that I can do on the budget. Here's what a typical timeline for the state plan says, is you have to have a public hearing, your documents, so your kind of draft plan with budget and everything, allocations to subgrades, everything, it has to be out 10 days before your public hearing. It has to be out on a website, it has to be on a public domain, so that everyone can access it. And you have to give public notice of the hearing. So that has to happen 10 days prior to your public hearing. Then you also have to have what we call a PAC review and approval, which is our Policy Advisory Council. We've rolled that council into our KHC's Housing Policy Advisory Council. Now, here's some tricky parts. That Housing Policy Advisory Council meets next week. They meet quarterly. Typically, we have everything done and ready for them to meet, and they just can like review and do an approval. So this is getting really tricky because we don't have any guidance out. So we don't have anything ready. But I wanted to kind of walk you through why I'm concerned, because there's certain timelines we have to meet and certain approvals we have to get, and we're way far behind on that. Any questions so far? Or concerns? Because we're going to talk more about the concerns. Okay, next slide. So this is what, just so you know, what we're planning to change right now in the state plan. I am going to increase, Kentucky's going to increase our contractor reimbursement on training and technical assistance. It's right now $100 per day. We're going to increase that to $200 per day. So you would be able to pay contractors and their team to come to training. So not only can you reimburse their expenses, but we have in the provisions for $100 per day. You'll be able to increase that to $200 per day. And can anybody hear any of my background noise, or can you just hear me? Can you just hear me? Thumbs up.
Just you.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the comments. I appreciate that. Okay. So that's one change. The second change is I need to look at the minimum wage from our last study that we did in 2025, our last NASCAS study. So we may need to increase our minimum wage payments for the state plan. I don't think it would go up much, but it may go up a little. I haven't really compared those. Ellery, you looked at that. Do you remember? I think it went up a little tick.
I don't remember for sure.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I can't remember the specifics, but I think some of them did go up a little tick. So we would adjust that in the state plan. We kept our health and safety at 17%. We put that change in last year. It's done really well. I think right now our health and safety, Patty helped me, was 15.1% on DOE formula. I think is what yesterday's numbers were.
Yes, that is correct.
Perfect. So that has helped. It's also what that did is it allows you to charge a little bit more to DOE health and safety, so you can save some of those health and safety LIHEAP dollars for regular weatherization dollars, which helps you with the program support. We are also going to add into our health and safety plan to allow for the replacement of inoperable hot water heaters. So that's not been in our state plan for health and safety. I'm adding that in because we're seeing that more and more out in the field. And so we're going to add that in. If you have any concerns about us adding that in, speak now or forever hold your peace. Price list versus bidding. So right now we have in our policies, this is not listed in the state plan, so I don't have to change this in the state plan, but I'm letting you know that we are just kind of adding this as a little piece, that right now in the state plan, we bid by job. So you have to, if you're doing contractors, you bid everything out by job. We are examining the ability for you to go to price lists. I'm going to tell you, I'm a big fan. What that would mean is that you negotiate a price list with your contractors at the beginning of each year, fiscal year, each contract year. They update, here's what we're going to have for a price list, and they stick to that all year. Okay. If something goes really out of whack, you can adjust that price list, but mostly they would stick to that, and it would include their materials costs and their labor costs. So here's our prices. What that would allow you to do is, instead of having to bid each job and then say, oh, well, you got the lowest bid, so you get the bid, or put in your policies, your procurement policies about, well, we won't always go by the lowest bid. Maybe we're going to choose the contractor who's closer in distance. Whatever you have in your procurement policies, it would keep you from having to bid every job. So what you would be able to do is, if you had 3 HVAC contractors, you could just rotate your jobs amongst the 3 HVAC contractors because you have a price list. So it does eliminate a lot of work at the front end. It also eliminates the time, right? So you have to put that out for bid, and then you have to wait like 10 days for the bids to come back, and then you have to review the bids and award the bids. A price list would eliminate all of that. So this is something that we're working through, the logistics of how that would go. But just know that you might see that in the state plan, that we're going to make that an option, and we will get something written in our program manual. When we're ready to do that, we're probably going to pilot it first to make sure of how it works. Other than these things, what else do you need that's within my control? I cannot control average cost per unit. If you think of something, email me. I know we did this in December, like we took comments, but these are the things that we have right now, and this is what we're going with, unless you've got something drastic. Okay. Any concerns about the replacement of hot water heaters in our health and safety plan? Okay. All right, so now the bad news. So I have laid out the history of what's going on with this current state plan. Typically, they are due 1st of May for us to, past years, excluding last year, for the past 6-7 years, we've been able to get approval on that state plan prior to July 1st so that you can start running with those formula dollars July 1. Okay, that's in a perfect world when we get it in the 1st of May. We don't even have guidance. So when we do get guidance, even if they have a fast turnaround of, like, let's say DOE says you can submit these anytime, we're not going to be able to, and I've lined out the timeline and the reasons why we can't get those in immediately. So it's going to take us probably at least 30 days to get those state plans ready. So even if they released it this week, the chances of us getting anything submitted before the end of May are not very high. And that would give DOE less than a month to get those reviewed for July 1. So I'm going for preparing for, we will have no formula dollars July 1st. So what it looks like for you. Luckily, we in Kentucky have not spent our IIJA bill dollars as well as we should have. Okay, that's a double-edged sword. But for today, that works for us. So you're going to transition to doing all IIJA jobs on July 1. What that also means, unfortunately, is you're going to have all of your formula jobs completed by June 30th, or you're going to have to put them on hold because you can't continue formula work on them and bill us for formula work done after June 30th because we're not going to have any formula dollars. That is not to say that we couldn't go back and reimburse you for the work, because just like this year, even though we didn't get approval until the end of September on our formula dollars, that contract went in effect July 1st. So it's not to say that that might not be an option, but you would be working without pay for I don't know how long. So either you're going to have to put them on hold, or you're going to have them completed, or you're going to work without pay on them. I'm going to guess you're not going to want to work without pay for a while. So I'm saying my strong recommendation is try to have all of your formula jobs done by June 30th. No weatherization ready past June 30th. So although weatherization ready has been appropriated in this formula, with this formula dollars by Congress, again, if you do weatherization ready, you're going to have to do those, and you're going to have to foot the bill until you get the money. And I don't think anybody's prepared to do that. So I would suggest that you get all of your weatherization ready work completed by June 30th. Now, you can use weatherization ready and IIJA bill jobs. So let's say you've got a bunch of weatherization ready ones that you have done by June 30th, but you've not started your weatherization work on them. You can make those IIJA bill jobs. Okay. We just can't do weatherization ready right now past June 30th. LIHEAP dollars. On July 1, this big tranche of LIHEAP money that you got in February will expire. It's expiring June 30th, right? So we will start July 1 with a brand new LIHEAP contract. We have already signed that contract. It's $1.8 million. This is typical. Those of you that have been doing this for a long, long time know this is pretty typical. For July 1, you get just a little bit in LIHEAP. Okay, I will ask for those rollover dollars and I will ask for them to come back to us as soon as possible. But in years past, the rollovers only looked like 1.2 million, 1.5 million. It hasn't looked like a lot, might look like a little bit more this year. We haven't even had a full quarter of those to even tell you what it's going to look like or project it out. Okay, don't get too far ahead on your energy audits under formula funding. So some of you are probably trying to get a lot of energy audits done. We get that. If you are charging those to formula dollars, those have to remain formula jobs. You can't switch them to IIJA bill funding if you've billed for them under formula. So be careful. All right, I think the next slide is Patty perhaps talking about energy audits.
Yes, it is.
Patty.
All right, to help you not get ahead of yourself on your energy audits, starting with your April billing, anything that you bill to energy audits will also need a comment on your invoice to tell us what project it's for. If you are in your Hancock invoice, you use the drop-down menu to move from direct cost to indirect cost. There's also a comment section. In that comment section, you can add a comment. Just tell us what the name and the address, or just the name of the projects that you're billing energy audits for. This is going to allow us to make sure that we have completions for all of the ones that you have done energy audits for and charged to your formula grant. And so we also know how many of these projects are actually going to kind of get stuck until we have additional funds. You can still charge energy audits expenses to your LIHEAP grant. That would go through program support, because there's not an optional budget category for energy audit. And that would allow you to use either formula or IIJA money. So if you get down, you're really close to the end and you're still doing energy audits, that's what we would recommend. If you have any questions, please reach out and let us know. If you can't figure out the comment section of the invoice, that's fine. Send an email to me or Johnny and we can add those comments into your invoice. We just need to really be able to track this very carefully because it could be a sticky point in a future monitoring.
All right, we have a chat. Do we have to enter comment on deferrals with energy audits?
Yes, if you're charging it to your formula grant in the energy audit activity, we need to know, because you might be able to use weatherization ready and then you might go back to it after the weatherization ready is complete. We need to know that that was a formula expense to begin with.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
okay,
that's good. I was just going to say, if you've got a deferral that you're doing an energy audit and you want to make it formula, that's fine. That's fine. And it's fine to do weatherization ready, but just keep in mind that you need to you're going to have it all done by June 30th, or you're going to do weatherization ready and you're going to have it wait until you get more formula dollars. And, in that case, it might wait for a while. Also note for your formula dollars that those dollars, whatever we're discussing right now for that state plan, those would be in effect through June 30th, 2027. So we are talking about like this long-term plan of trying to figure out what we're going to do for that funding. And also note that your formula dollars that you have right now, those will roll over. So we are told by DOE that those funds will roll over, but we cannot use them until we have an approved state plan. Okay. All right, next slide. We will keep you updated as we have information on the DOE formula dollars, the state plan. When it changes, we will let you know. We are, we did your applications, so I'll be taking a look at those and just figure out where we are at with those. Like I'm trying to do as much planning as I can and get as much stuff done as I can so that we can move pretty quickly. It's just a little difficult. To get to that point. That's where we're at. All right. IIJA benchmarks. So I just wanted to give you a picture of where we are with IIJA since we're telling you now, July 1, you really need to just move to spending IIJA. But I do want you to have a good image of what has happened with our IIJA money. So these are our expenditures. So I want to talk about benchmarks. We were approved April 22 for IIJA. So we've been going for about 3 years, and we should essentially have spent at least, we should pretty much be done with we should be able to meet benchmark after 3 years. Okay. 3 years, we should have been more than halfway spent on the money. The benchmark is 30%. So to access the full 51 million right now, we have to be a benchmark of 30%. That benchmark on funding is 15.5 million. We've spent 10.8 to date. So the 10.8 is a little bit less than the 30%. It's really, we're sitting at 20%. But I wanted to show you what that looks like, and we're gonna like do a little synopsis of this later, but that's where that chart is. All right, the next slide, please. Now, this is job production. We also have to be at 30% for job production. Now, keep in mind that this 3,913 job number for job completions was calculated on an $8,009 average cost per unit. So definitely the average cost per unit would change it a little bit. Pulling out energy auditor, intake specialist, pulling out QCI, that would change that number as well. But we cannot revise our state plan and revise that number until we spend 50% of the money. So you can see we're way far off of being able to revise those numbers. For job production, we're in the green. This is where we are right now. We have 528 jobs. To meet a benchmark of 30%, we need to be at 1,174 jobs. So we're more than half, like we're not even at 15% of the total. So we have a long way to go, is what I'm telling you. So we definitely can absorb all of your work July 1. We can absorb all the work. Don't stop. Don't like lay off production. Just switch everything to IIJA because we need to spend the money. Now, the kicker is, Johnny, if you'll go back to that expenditure rate. That expenditure rate, we are at our benchmark at 30% would be 15 million. To get to 50% so that we can actually revise the state plan, we basically have to spend 25 million. But we also have to meet 50% of job production to be able to revise that state plan. 50% job production, Johnny, if you'll go back to that slide, would be about 1,600, I think. Yeah, so it would be about, we would have to have almost 2,000 jobs done. As you can see, our job production is not keeping up with our expenditure production. So we do have some concerns about what happens when we hit 50% expenditure rate and we haven't hit a 50% job production rate. That might kill us altogether, because if we don't meet the job production rate, we can't get the remaining access to the remaining 50% of the money. So just keep that in mind. That average cost per unit is very, very significant in IIJA bill. And we're at like a $12,500 average cost per unit. So if you're asking me to buy vehicles right now, the only way you're going to get approved to buy a vehicle in this is if you're producing me a lot of jobs. We have to produce jobs. So remember the big highlighted like thing that grew, do more jobs. That's where we are with also IIJA, do more jobs. So July 1, you guys tend to, it's a trend that you tend to like slow down production that first quarter. And I know you're slowing down production because you don't have light heat money. We have to keep producing jobs. So we're going to have to braid the best we can braid with what light heat money we have. That also means we can't allocate light heat money to weatherization ready so that you can do deferrals. You'll just have to keep deferring starting July 1 until we can get some weatherization ready money going. Okay. Questions? I hope the charts helped you understand where we are with the benchmarks and the production with expenditures and jobs, and kind of helps you understand the concerns that we have at KHC about where we're at. Okay. Updates. Just some updates on conferences. The CAK conference, state conference, will be July, I think it's 10th, 11th, and 12th. But we're doing a weatherization pre-session on June 9th. And on June 9th, we're doing a session on monitoring what we're seeing in the field and what we're like in technical and admin. So we'll be covering monitoring for an hour-and-a-half session. And then we are doing a session on federal housing funding, just like our other housing dollars, not just weatherization. On June 11th, we are doing a session with, it's just kind of a general weatherization overview, but it is geared more towards intake specialists and CSBG workers who are doing your application process to try to help educate them so they can maybe get you more applications in. On August 5th and 6th, the KHC Affordable Housing Conference will be in Lexington. We will be doing a weatherization pre-session all day on August 4th. And that is the convention center downtown, I believe. August 19th through the 21st is Energy Out West, which is in Phoenix. All of you all are eligible to use your TNTA dollars to attend that conference as well. And that conference happens every other year. So this is the year that it's happening. So I just wanted to give you those conference updates so that you know what's coming up. NASCAS is slated right now to be in September in Houston. So that's another conference that we always recommend that you all attend. Not many of you do, but it's a really good conference for sub-grantees to go to just like figure out, here's where the grantee has some flexibility. Here's where, oh, KHC doesn't let us have that flexibility, but Colorado is letting their people have that flexibility. Hey, KHC, could you do that for us? Okay, that's where you learn some of those tips and tricks that's going on in the industry. All right. The questions about that. Next slide. Legislative update. Not a whole lot has happened since the last technical assistance meeting that we had on legislative updates. HB 1355 is still in the same place. It still hasn't been called to the floor. We're not sure when that will happen. We've had meetings with Guthrie's office to try to figure that out. Guthrie's office has also pointed us to go talk to some others, which we have done. The S-2570 is still in committee and S-1342 is still in committee. So that's where those bills are. Those are the bills and legislation that would raise the average cost per unit. So those are still super important bills, but no progress has been made. Right now, a lot of the focus in Congress is about FY27 appropriations. So we're not backing off of those. Like NASCAS has already submitted their request for those appropriations. And just to let you know, there's a lot going on in Congress right now. They're confirming some new people. I don't know if you all have heard, but there's a war and the gas prices are out of control. So Congress has a lot of things, and a Homeland Security's budget was never actually their appropriation was not approved in Congress. So they still are shut down. So there is a lot going on in Congress besides our weatherization bills. So but that's where that is. We have met with Senator Paul's office, Senator McConnell's office, Representative Guthrie, Rogers, Barr, and Massey. We met with them and our lobbyists with NASCAS just to do weatherization education and what it looks like in Kentucky. Those meetings went really well. Senator Paul's office was more along the lines of Senator Paul does like to support things that help the state, but he is fiscally responsible and fiscally conservative, which we expect. Okay. The Guthrie meeting, of course, always goes well. He is a supporter of weatherization. Rogers is a huge supporter of weatherization. So those two meetings went well. I've been with Guthrie in person, Rogers virtually. We had some technical issues that day in DC, and they were all sent home early. We met with Barr's office and Massey's office in person. Barr's meeting went well. Massey's meeting went as well as can be expected. But Massey also is very fiscally conservative. So if it means that we are adding to the national deficit, he's going to be a no vote. We expected that. We just need really Representative Massey and Senator Paul to not block the legislation when it's called to floor. And they have done that in the past. So that's really the objective there. So if you want more intel on what happened with those meetings, please let me know. We appreciate everyone that we ask to get us success stories for those meetings. Those success stories are super important. That is also part of your contracts to be submitting and emailing success stories to us. When you are writing those success stories, one of the pieces that we really, really need in those success stories is if you can tell us how much their energy bills have reduced prior to weatherization, post weatherization. Those are super significant to the success stories. But we continue to share those. They're hugely important. Thanks to all of you all who've gotten to those. And I think my next slide is about success stories. Oh, maybe that slide didn't get in there. Anyway, maybe that's in another presentation I'm doing next week. NASCAS, just to give you a kind of a teaser. NASCAS came to Kentucky, sent some videographers to come to Kentucky and do a video of a client. And so we chose, honestly, Daniel Boone Community Action. All of you all do great work. We chose them because the videographers were coming from Atlanta and they were right off I-75 and could get us a homeowner right off the interstate to make it easy for the videographers to really do that like in a 24-hour period. So thank you, Daniel Boone, for helping us coordinate that, because it did take a lot of coordination. It took a day out of their work production because we were literally there for 6 hours, I think. So we appreciate them doing that and getting the homeowner. It was a really nice success story. So I can't wait for the video. NASCAS has got a lot of footage, and that is paid for through a grant with the Department of Energy, because the Department of Energy wants to use those success stories nationally with congressmen and just with their department. So just stay tuned, and we should get that. We'll get that link out to everyone to watch as soon as we get it. But thank you for that. All right. We're 11:35. It's been long. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for your attention. Are there any questions or comments? We've tried to watch the chat, but you can feel free to come off mute if you want to ask any questions, or you can raise your hands, or you can drop it in the chat. Okay. With that, I will end the TA session. We will stop the recording. Thank you all so much. I know it was a lot. We will put the recording out on our YouTube channel, get that link out to you, and then the slide deck